Fantasy versus Bbyong.
To the top left of Daedalus Point, we have Fantasy. Was able to win game number 2, brought us into this third map. Map choice of his opponent. Was victorious on the last map.
That's that smug Fantasy look, by the way, that I really like.
Well, he's up against this bad boy to the bottom right of the map. We have Bbyong for CJ Antus, winning game number 1, and it's his map choice now for the final game in the series.
Fantasy's a dangerous man. Very dangerous player. You give him 1 inch, he'll take a mile. Actually, he'll take a kilometer because we're not in America and we don't use that. But he's also, I guess if you take that a little bit further, you give him a centimeter, then he'll take a kilometer. But I don't think that's how the saying goes.
SCV.
Whoa, that SCV needs to chill out, man. You know, people used to always do that in Wings of Liberty before their barracks was made. I don't know why, but then people just stopped and they just didn't do it, and now it's like coming back. I've noticed a few players doing that recently. I used to do that too when I was playing Terran. I always dance my SCV because I was like, well, I need a few more seconds, might as well do something with it, right? Right?
SCV dance. I'm not dancing SCV.
Do you ever dance your drone when you go hatch first, like right before you get there, and you're like a little bit off on your timing, you just dance it for a second, then you make the hatchery?
No, I usually run in circles.
Well, I guess that's something.
My drones have no rhythm. Like, none at all.
Yeah, they were never taught. These SCVs, you know, they're coming from, some of them maybe from Earth, possibly knowing about the dancing techniques. Don't get me started on that Oracle dance. That's a real disco, man.
The Oracle dance. Well, there we have the gas now taken also for Bbyong, this time a little bit later than Fantasy, and of course the scouts are also moving in once again. We have Fantasy with a quick confirm that there is gas already been taken by Bbyong, looks at the timing, moves back, and it's all the way to the top left. Guess what? Access denied.
Ouch. Reaper comes out to follow up. Fantasy's on the hunt. Not just for that SCV, but for information, for knowledge. That's what the Reaper is going to grant him as a follow-up.
The hunt for knowledge.
Why is he...
Wise words.
Why is he after that?
After
that tile. What does that tile do to him?
I don't know. People just like to kill stuff.
They like to kill a tile. And the thing is, if you accidentally click on the tile in a big battle, which does happen every now and then in professional matches, then it's like, that's really scary. So I guess that's maybe the reason why. He starts doing it for a little while, and he's like, well, this isn't important. I guess I should probably like try to deny the Reaper.
That happened in one of the games that we casted, I think, yesterday, where a player tried to take down a probe and went for the move and clicked on the tile instead of the probe, and the probe actually escaped because of it.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was just one shot away from taking him down.
Destructible plates, ruining walls, and micro since 2012. 2013, I guess. This is one amazing thing that Reaper gets on. He's on the hunt for knowledge, but also
I'm not quite sure why those Marines turned around there for a second.
Well, he's actually going to get a second SCV. Oh my god. No?
Ooh, close though.
Nearly.
Yeah, Reaper moving back, having a quick double check there. He needs to take the Reaper down. He's pretty close. He's getting it in there, but nope. Another SCV goes down. Fantasy, look at that micro.
They call him the terrorist Terran. That's for a reason.
Well, he's terrorizing the main base of Bbyong, that's for sure.
He's actually trying to find any other... Well, okay, he loses the Reaper, but any damage he gets done is very annoying, and...
It's just a delay on the command center as well.
Yeah, the delay on the CC, delay on the factory, and then by proxy the starport. And, that by extension my voice.
Bunker at the front now here at Daedalus Point. That bunker has a very difficult job. It's a big ramp that he has to cover there.
Yeah, I mean...
But both of them go into very similar builds right now. We have a very similar starport timing. We have 2 Helllands for both of them, and a bit more of a Marine commitment for Bbyong since he didn't go into the Reaper here at the beginning.
That bunker is like an outpost, really, if you think about it, on that wall. It's just like some tiny little thing that sits up at the top, like a watchtower.
Well, he's starting to wall with a few supply depots, so give him time and he will be able to just shut that down.
Do you remember when Fantasy first played StarCraft II and he kept getting supply blocked?
Oh, that was horrible.
This reminds me of that, because he's going to have a lot of extra depots.
He was not only getting supply blocked, sometimes he was really supply blocked for minutes. Where he hit a supply block and he just wouldn't build a supply depot. He just would sit there and would accumulate resources. And we're all looking at it, was like, does he not realize that? There is a voice like, right, that tells him that he's supply blocked. And for a minute or two, he didn't build another supply depot.
Those are the good old days, man. Now he's come a long way.
He improved so much with his macro. It was insane.
This is a really scary move here from Bbyong. He loves his Hellion Marine drops. Speaking of Hellions, ouch, he's going to lose basically every SCV here if Fantasy micros correctly. He's a terrorist, man.
Whoa, Fantasy sneaks those in somehow. And
Speaking of sneaking in.
Oh my god, this is exactly the opposite of what Fantasy wanted to happen here. We have Marines taking down
and it just goes in the main
both of them blow for blow. The Hellions taking those SPs apart. I thought it was bad what happened to Bbyong, but Fantasy is getting demolished here.
Yeah, he's getting demolished here. That one Banshee he has is his last hope. One Marine being surrounded by SCVs with the healing power of the medevac is able to take out several SCVs. So low on hit points, these Hellions still doing damage. And let's take a step back and look at this. 27 Harvesters, 25 in total now.
Pretty equal, actually. I would like to see how many Harvesters were killed by both players.
It's because Fantasy had that faster command center, and so he was able to build SCVs up a little bit longer. But then Bbyong had, he took less damage, so as a result, he stays.
Fantasy must have killed a lot more SCVs there, though. I would really love to see that right now. And oh, yes, the Banshee getting cloaked immediately.
I think he might be able to get out of the scan range.
Yeah, I think he will. And that's definitely the case here.
Second scan. And that's already almost worth it. He gets 2 kills as well. Not bad.
Yep, good moves. Here we go. 16 Harvesters killed, 15 by Bbyong. And he's moving in again.
I just keep saying speaking of which in this game because this mirror matchup turns out this way. So many Harvesters go down the mules as well, and he picks up to dodge the Hellions.
Really good job here by Bbyong, and he is currently terrorizing Fantasy.
Now, Hurricane Bbyong, man, he's on class 5 right now as he comes in here doing so much damage. He's like a wrecking ball.
Another Banshee is moving into the main base of Bbyong now. There's one missile turret. He's trying to find the sweet spot. At the same time, still the micro by Bbyong there. The harvesting count 32 against 29.
This is like a boxing match. These two going at it blow for blow.
Yeah, they definitely are. Like, what's defense? They are going for an offense, both of them, and they do damage. And it's actually now time for Bbyong to go into a cloak upgrade on his own and starting his first Banshees. Nice position here for the Banshee of Fantasy.
Yeah, he needs to get a Viking over there to help deal with this. He's denying mining time. Meanwhile, over here at this base, kills 2 more Harvesters, it looks like.
Really nice lead now for Bbyong in income. 33 Harvesters against 22.
Bbyong's micro with his attacks are insane, but his micro on his defense was a little bit weak. He had that Raven out for a long time, never using it. Even having the turrets there to help, but didn't use the Viking to chase. He's finally going to kill this Banshee, which gets 6 kills in total.
The big danger is now that the Banshees of Bbyong are able to do exactly, do a lot of damage here. And he has to defend here at the bottom, and he doesn't really see it. He needs to send that Viking over.
Yeah, he's making so many mistakes against the Banshees here. Don't forget that Fantasy's SCVs are so low from that harassment that the Banshees might be able to one-shot several of them.
Bbyong is doing an amazing job with his own aggression, just doing damage to Fantasy, but at the same time, his defense back at home lacking a little bit. There's just so much stuff happening that it's really difficult for him to jump to all these spots and take care of things.
Third CC is complete, and we see that first Banshee coming over to the natural with Hellions to catch the retreating SCVs potentially.
That's he could go for the siege tanks.
I think
he could actually go for the siege tanks here, but
no
he's taking down even more Harvesters, and he denies mining there. There we go, having an auto turret in the main base. Again, the attempt to do something with those Hellions, but they are being shut down by a siege tank.
Both players going to third CC at almost identical timings. The Harvester count's still better for Bbyong at 38 to 31. He doesn't have any siege tanks of his own, though, and that's going to hurt him slowly over time. It looks like he plans on meching. Well, maybe not, because he's going to go over there and make that reactor on the starport right after set. He just doesn't have any Marines, and he hasn't produced any for quite some time.
5 kills on the Banshee now, and I'm not quite sure what the 2 Marines and the siege tank are trying to do here.
I'm not sure either.
If they run into the Banshee, they'll be sorry. Talking about running into things. The Banshee here runs into a Raven and a Viking. Well, let's see how many kills.
So many of these SCV is weak from the Hellion harass, remember. That's why he's able to one-shot so many of those. And here comes another Banshee right over here to the natural. No missile turret, no Banshee, only an auto turret, which is not going to be enough. No
Raven
detection.
is in the main base, exactly. And now it's 26 Harvesters, 25, 24 against 43. It's killing even more. Job well done here. 47 Harvesters killed in this game by Bbyong.
He's on top of it, man. He's got a third CC. That mech composition I was talking about is starting to be fully realized here. And he's making, it looks like Vikings out of that starport. Don't have the production tab, but...
What an aggressive game by both of them.
There's so many siege tanks here that the Hellion force that we see on the map right now for Bbyong is not going to be able to do anything at the front. if he walks into those siege tanks, he's going to be making a big mistake. And he's just kind of, he's just kind of exerting himself on the map. He's going out there with his Hellions, trying to see, okay, is there anything moving out my way? Are you trying to take a third base? Not really a whole lot he's going to be able to get done. In fact, the Banshee, if it meets the Hellions, is pretty happy about that, as we saw just there for a moment. But look at how the supply differs so much for these two players. Now that Bbyong has 3 command centers up and he's got that triple mule, his economy is exploding. He's even moving his command center down to the low ground now. We'll take double gases there. And
Blue Flame also coming up. He has a massive amount of Hellions and he's still producing them. Adding tanks now to the mix, whereas Fantasy is once again relying on Bio here with the stim that he's currently researching. A lot of Hellions in the middle of the map. That's 66 army supply already. He has that Raven there, and he has also the better Viking count. So he can really start to move across the map. He has his own safe third base, and this is worth a lot to him at this point, since Fantasy just doesn't have that extra income.
Fantasy needs to do damage with a big drop, or take a great defensive lead, you know, with an attack coming his way. If he actually defends really well, it'd be good for him, but that's not going to be it.
Those Hellions try to be smart. They saw the army incoming from Bbyong and they're like, well, if you move to the Zelnaga Watchtower, I just go around you and go straight into your third. And then suddenly half of the army was still there, and the Hellions, turns out they weren't that smart after all.
I mean, it's a good idea, right? I mean, do a lot with a little. That's what Fantasy needs to do right now.
It was an intelligent move from his perspective, from what he saw. But like, unfortunately for him, he moved right into the main body of the army.
Yeah, it looks like he walked into the Zelnaga Watchtower as well, which gave the advance warning to Bbyong. Bbyong's Hellion count is now up to 22. Interestingly enough, this time not going into Hellbats at all. Probably will a little bit later, or get the transformation servos, because he is going to want to be able to load those up into medevacs and drop on top of Fantasy's bio army, especially when it's as marine heavy as it is right now at 21 marines. Can also drop on top of siege tanks, so that's something later on we'll see. And he actually adds 4 Hellions now that I mentioned this, 4 Hellbats. Adding the turrets because he knows the one way Fantasy gets back in this game is with harassment, whether it's with Hellions on the ground or with you know, drops in the main base. Speaking of harassment,
yeah, taking down a couple of mules here, so far good job, but there's so much to keep those Hellions at bay. Kills 1 now, and Bbyong still ahead in the series, or in the game. 25 harvesters kills against 50. Bbyong was really so effective with his harass at the economy. Now we have double Banshee and double Viking being produced for Fantasy. But the Viking count for Bbyong is already way too good.
Yeah, he just has to make sure he doesn't get complacent with that.
No, it's actually a lot closer than I thought.
6 to 8.
6 to 8. I really thought that Bbyong had more.
Well, he could have had. He just stopped for a little while with his production. And only time will tell like how much this commitment to these tech labs for Fantasy is going to work out. Because if it's not scouted and he can take control of the air and start picking off siege tanks, this could also be one way he gets ahead. In TVT, if you get behind with Biotank, then what you can do is take control of the air, use Banshees, and then later on, Battle Crews, as you see, the Fusion Core on the production tab right now.
The advantage that you have, yeah, Fusion Core as well. The advantage, of course, that Bbyong has in the air battle is that he has the better upgrades for air. He's already at a +1 attack upgrade. And on the other hand, of course, with the point defense drone that we are going to see from both players, the position is going to matter quite a lot. But here is Bbyong moving in and maybe not giving Fantasy the time that he needs. That's a lot of Vikings here regardless, 10 to 8.
That test spot is bringing his go with the army.
They're really going for counter-aggression again, aren't they?
This is scary though, because there's a lot of siege tanks for Fantasy to defend. And this base is possibly gone for Bbyong. It's got so many Marines here underneath it. Only a few Hellbats, the Marauders tank. I think he's going to get the CC.
There's the repair, he's mass repairing it. I don't think he's going to get it, especially with all those Hellions moving in right now with the Blue Flame. Fantasy's army is going down.
Yep, he doesn't get the CC, all the repairs there, and with the reinforcements coming over those Hellions, this ends up being a really poor trade for Fantasy, who basically loses his entire army for forcing a repair, and he doesn't get a good trade out of it at all. This has been a trend, actually, in the past few weeks for some players just trying to kill the town centers and losing so many units as a result.
Keen when he was going in, I think it was against Myeongsik.
Yeah, we had Bravo do the same thing in a TVP in Pro League. I can't remember which player it was against, but this just keeps happening.
Well, it's still 14 to 12 Vikings. We have the first battle cruiser building. The first cattle bruiser is coming into the game pretty soon. But the +2 attack upgrade has now been started, and as you just pointed out, Thor's now also on the production tab for Bbyong.
Yeah, Thor's coming up here will help out a little bit against the air problem. He's going to have +2 for those Thors. I still think transitioning into additional starports would be a safe thing for Bbyong to do, but I think he's thinking that he's going to come over here and do massive amount of damage at this third base before he even needs to.
He still doesn't know. I don't think he saw the commitment to starports. Well, there we go. He's trying to get into position, and it's the battle of the Vikings right now. Where are those point defense drones? He's hitting them. The Raven is immediately gone. He has no Raven on his own, and the Banshees are doing damage against the units on the low ground. We have still very even army supply. A bit of an advantage here for Bbyong, but for how long?
Yep.
The Thors are moving in now as well. The Viking battle looks like Fantasy's actually going to win it.
Looks like Fantasy,
Oh,
well, he
point
was
defense
losing
zone.
a few
There it
point
is.
defense run helps out, and a few more Vikings left over here coming in, just flying across the map, plus the fact that he has these Thors for help, and those very important upgrades. Some idle SCVs here. The weapon refit upgrade is done, and as are these two battlecruisers, which will be the second and third ones. But Bbyong continues to push in here. I don't think he's going to be able to force his way through, though.
Yeah, he's doing damage with those siege tanks in particular. But what about that one battlecruiser that we already have? The Vikings are trying to chase it down, and this is the time when Bbyong realizes he needs more anti-air units. He has the +1 attack upgrade, as we already talked about a little bit earlier. There's double battlecruiser now, 60 army supply against 52. The economy is still really good for both players. It's actually better for Fantasy than it is for Bbyong.
I thought he realized that he was up against battlecruisers with the scan because he was making those Thors, but he really just does not have the infrastructure to make more Vikings. He's only making 2 at a time, and this gives Fantasy a great opportunity to take control of this game. He's trying to catch some Thors over here with a small bio force. The battlecruisers coming in. Meanwhile, there's no kiting on these Vikings.
He does not have a lot of anti-air. The Thor is completely idle there, and the Vikings, they are gone. The auto turrets are also absolutely absent. We have, right now, we have only the ground units trying to take down that command center, and he has to lift. He's trying to move back.
He saves the CC. And this means these tanks need to get out of here before the battlecruiser does any more damage to them.
The Thor is trying to do what he can, and also we have more and more missile turrets being started here. If he can get those missile turrets into the game, then the battlecruisers can't engage, and this third base will never be retaken by Fantasy.
Fantasy needs a third base. His economy is really, really negatively affected by this. Here come the
Yamato.
Yamatos on that Thor, and the siege tanks now need to get out of here.
Siege tanks trying to get out of there, but the first missile turret is starting to do a little bit of damage. Where are the rest of the Vikings? 2 of them are there. And I think Bbyong, he really needs another star point. He's
really
only building 2 Vikings at a time.
He can afford to make a few more.
Yeah,
and I think it's just something that he's reluctant to do because he's scared there's not going to be any more battle cruisers. And then once he makes a big commitment back to Vikings, then the Bioforce just rips his ground army to shreds.
Really important is that he by now has all those additional orbital commands that allow him to get more mules into the game. But this is 4 battle cruisers already. He's getting 2 Vikings and 2 Thors at a time now. But he needs to fall back with his army. He's going to lose way too many siege tanks now.
Yeah, he needs to get out of here. He just needs to give up this position. He lets him retake his third base. He already has secured a 4th. He has so many extra orbitals, the ones you mentioned, allowing him to scan here quite a bit.
The income right now for Bbyong is just so much better, even though Fantasy puts down his third base again. So Bbyong just needs to get the right army composition into the match right now, but it's just so close. If you look at it, we have Fantasy now in an army supply lead.
Yeah, this is...
he has 1 tank. He lost all the other tanks. There's 1 tank remaining on the ground.
He's got 1 tank left, and that's something that... I mean, look at his bank. He's built such a huge bank. He's just not... He doesn't have enough production facilities to support it. I mean, he's now starting to finally rebuild. Really want to see that production tab. I want to see exactly how many he's building right now. And the Viking count that he has at 8 will be able to deal with the battlecruisers decently. He wants more than that. He's going to have to move these SCVs away, though. He does not want to lose those. He's going to lose his command center if he doesn't lift it right away.
And he does lift it immediately. He has a lot of Thors. He's starting his tanks again, and he's still continuing to produce Vikings. He has the resources there, and I think given a little bit of time, he should be able to really make something happen. On the other hand, we have now the attempt by Fantasy to just move one of his orbital commands over to the right side of the map and take another base. And a 4th base would be absolutely devastating for Bbyong, who on the other hand goes straight into the +3 attack upgrade right now.
That's a really cool little depot, by the way, that Bbyong makes to deny the command center from landing. This is tense because Fantasy has now this 4th base controlled. He has an army that's back up to snuff, and he still has to support those battle cruisers. And what Bbyong needs to do is re-secure that other base and also get his army up, which takes so much longer because he's trying to build a mech composition. And this Bioforce just keeps literally marauding across the map and picking off his structures, picking off his workers, and forcing his orbitals to lift.
That is a pretty massive force here, and he needs to lift that orbital, but he doesn't actually. He can secure it here. And immediately Fantasy moving back. He has the much more mobile force right now, and he is using it. He is just going for another stay, moves in, moves back, uses those medivacs to heal up the hit points, and gets base after base behind that.
Yeah, it's just the mobility of his army. He's able to run in, pick off a few SCVs, pick off a few structures, eliminate those missile turrets and then get out.
But
that's the power of Bio.
Yeah, the longer the waits, on the other hand, the better the situation is going to be for Bbyong, just because he builds up this big army. Again, he has good upgrades too.
Yeah, he's about to have +3. It's about halfway done. 3 tanks at a time. He's recontrolled air. That's why Fantasy is using those tech labs he has to rebuild Viking or Ravens, because he knows he's never going to catch up in the Viking count with the point defense drones and the support of the battlecruisers that he has. He's going to be in an okay spot. Hellbat's coming in here for harass, now going towards the natural. There's not a lot of minerals left there, though.
Yeah, identical amount of harvests now for both of them. And here comes that drop once more, trying to take down the SCVs that are currently mining gas.
He actually gets a few of them.
Yeah,
oh, that was a pretty big stack up of SCVs there.
Totally killed 7.
Not so bad. And 47 to 40 harvesters now in favor of Bbyong, who has all these orbitals, all these bases mining right now. Look at the income. He's doubling Fantasy's income. Fantasy needs to drop some mules. He's dropping so many scans because he's so scared about the composition of mech that's coming towards him right now and where it's located on the map. I'd like to see Bbyong add a few medevacs into his composition so he can actually take those units and drop them on top of the bio. He's obviously concerned about Fantasy's own Viking force that might target down his units.
Additional starports would have been nice for him, but he's really sticking out with this one that he has. It's 18 against 11 Vikings at this point in time. And he's just trying. I mean, if he catches this army of Fantasy once on the map, I really feel that he can beat it. But it's just the mobility that Fantasy is trying to use to his advantage. Did he just Seeker mess his own SCV? Did that just happen?
Yeah, that did.
That's
one way to free up supply to get a stronger army.
Yeah, I guess.
But he like damaged his own siege tanks in the process. I don't think that must not have been exactly.
And he used up the energy here. And here we go, the Vikings trying to get their shots off.
Not enough anti-air, not enough air presence here for Fantasy. Meanwhile, Hellbat's attacking Fantasy's 3rd base. He's losing some harvesters here, and he cannot afford to lose this army. Here we go!
Here comes the main battle, and Seeker missiles everywhere!
He doesn't actually split.
Oh my god.
He doesn't split his Vikings, and the air battle goes to Fantasy now.
Oh my god, he actually wins the air battle here, but all those cattle bruisers, they are gone, and now there's only Vikings, and the Thors are having a pretty good time here. We have more siege tanks just moving over to the 4th base of Fantasy, and once again, Bbyong takes an overall lead in the game, has the better army and the better harvester supply.
He had the bank as well, and that's where he's remaxing with right now. He's killing so many harvesters here with this Hellbat. Fantasy not paying attention to the last second, losing so many, now down to 30 harvesters here, having to lift his base again, and Bbyong still having the better composition. Fantasy's army can be remaxed faster, but only if he has money, you know? It's so easy to remax a Bioforce if you can afford it, but if you can't afford it, the opposite is true, and oh my god, more harvesters going down here. Even the resources he has in his hands, those SCVs are...
The thing is, Vikings alone are not really going to help him. The best thing that he can do with those Vikings is just fly into one of the bases and go into assault mode.
Or, you know, start camping starports, something like that. But
yeah, but the problem really is that the only thing that Bbyong has to do is build Thors and build a ground army. Because at this point, there's nothing that the Vikings can really support. There are no battle cruisers left. And Fantasy doesn't really have the resources to suddenly crank those out. So the best thing, I feel, would really be move into the base and try to drop. But look at this army. How are you going to defeat this ground army?
It's going to be virtually impossible, but he's got a small task force down here to the south that's trying to go over and destroy the 4th base of Fantasy, or of Bbyong, who meanwhile is killing the 4th base of Fantasy. The Thor on anti-air mode as well, so he can actually do a lot of extra damage to any lifting structure or any Vikings that come near him. This group of Marauders is starting to be a little bit of an annoyance for Bbyong, but this base isn't really the big concern for him. It's almost mined out of gas anyways, and he can just retake refineries somewhere else.
We have 100 army supply now against 55, and Bbyong's death ball that he has there, which is looking incredible. At the same time, the Vikings really trying to do what they can, and going into assault mode might tank down, might deal with all those tanks and everything that we have in the main base. But this army, I don't think he can beat this army.
I mean, taking out these small forces of units here is pennies on the dollars. He can't defeat the real army, and I mean, his Viking count drops here. Bbyong is killing the infrastructure of Fantasy. Fantasy drops down to now 50 army supply, and it's mostly in those Vikings. I don't see this game going any other way than the Bbyong taking it. He could send a few units home.
The one funny thing is that as soon as a few buildings fly away, Bbyong can't kill them. Fantasy can.
This is a good point. This is a very good point.
I don't really think it's going to come into play,
well,
but it's
these
just
two
a little
Thors
bit
alone.
Food for thought.
These 2 Thors alone will kill most of these Vikings. I mean, let's be honest.
Yep, and of course the hero Hellbat that we have there as well. Yeah, he kills all of them for this is it.
I mean, plus 3 attack, you're going to kill those Vikings in like...
With all the upgrades that he has
time.
and a massive upgrade advantage, it really looks like this is going to be game.
GG, and Bbyong will advance to our winners match. Fantasy fans everywhere cannot be disappointed though. He played a really good series. This game was all about these 2 players throwing punches at each other in the early game. Bbyong takes the better trades in Game 2 and in Game 3, gets ahead.
That was a pretty crazy game. That was a very, very crazy game between the 2 of them. back and forth and the entire time just completely ignoring the defense and going for aggression here. In the end, Bbyong takes it and advances to the winners match.
I think the days of Bio and TVT are slowly starting to fade away here. A good mech player seems to just be able to defend all avenues and has so much more versatility with...
Did you see how he struggled to open the camera?
I saw that.
Attaboy, drinking the hot 6 right after he wins this game.
You know, he's supporting our sponsor.
Yeah, sponsor's going to be happy to see that.
And, you know, hot 6 is a great drink. If you come to Korea and you have the opportunity to take it.
Take the sugar-free one. Tastes better.
Yeah, the light one. It looks like this. This is what it looks like. It's really good.
I have to get myself one later. Yeah, but that was actually a really good start into the group. So Fantasy goes into the losers match, and we have Bbyong advancing to the winners match. Our second game is going to be a Protoss versus Zerg, since we have Super going up against Solar. I'm really looking forward to this. I want to see how Solar is going to do in an offline environment here in the GSL studio on Pro League.
Yeah, he's done well in Pro League, and I think he might be able to get out of this group. He's really on fire right now. Like you said, he's doing well in online tournaments.
I've casted him a lot in so many online tournaments over the last weeks and months, and this guy is really good. He's the real deal, and I want to see how he's going to do today. Before we go into this best of 3, though, we have another short break, and when we come back, then we have the second game in Group E here. Second best of 3, that is. Solar going up against Super. So, guys, see you in a few.